Hello all, welcome to study 27 of Solving Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This is another one from the Georgian master David Gurgenidze, one of the contemporary chess composers we have at the moment. I enjoy this a lot, so I hope you do it also. As always, if you haven't watched the video with the guide, so you have a better idea in what you need to focus to improve calculation. And as always, I see you after the countdown. Have fun. And let's go with the solution. As always, let's start with the first only move and bishop d3. I think this is very easy to find. The first part of the study, it's relatively easy, I think. So bishop d3, and now we are threatening a discovered check, and it's basically the only way to stop the pawns from promoting. Because, of course, we are under the attack of the king to the rook, and more hard than that, we need to stop both one of the pawns to promote. And as you can see, the rook can't go to the first rank because it's blocked by its own bishop. So only way is to go with a setup for a discovered check. Because now what happens? If the pawn, for example, promotes to a queen, well, I can simply take it, and the other one promoting to the queen, well, seems like possible, but no, because I will remove the rook, allowing to discover check to act, and then I'd simply take the queen. And the same goes if I try to promote it, like for example for a knight. It changes nothing, it's just a check, but okay, again we do the same, and in the end it's an easy win for white. So this is not the idea. The idea for black, of course, needs to keep controlling and avoiding discovering check. So now it's threatening again to promote one of the pawns. Of course, the a pawn is most serious at the moment. So the basic following move, it's also forced. Rook c1, it's a forced move. Or else black will simply promote. So now black, of course, will approach the king with the idea of bringing the king to b2 and then helping promote the pawn, forcing the rook to sack the promoted pawn. Then the king takes the rook, and then we are playing against a bishop and a king, which is a draw. This is the idea for black. But of course, now white needs to play, and needs to play in a smart way. Because, for example, if we try to protect the pawn with bishop c4, well, we are going to be surprised because we can do a sacrifice of promotion. Okay, so now we are attacking the rook and the bishop, so it's forced to take the queen, and now suddenly the king is able to approach, and there's no way to avoid what I have told you before, because now if the bishop takes the pawn, of course I will take the rook, and so on. So there's no way to stop the pawn advancing, promoting, and forcing the rook to sacrifice. So here we need to be careful because there will be surprise moves. So without this move being possible, what are the following moves that white can do? Because of course this pawn is controlled, but this one is the big problem. And the correct way, now this is harder to find, the correct way is to bring the rook to block the pawn advancing. So now we are threatening the pawn. Of course, next move from black is very logical. We protect the pawn. And yes, we are threatening to reach b2. And now this is the first critical moment for white. If you haven't reached here, there's another chance for you to think and to improve calculation. So try to think the solution and try to see how to stop now black from reaching b2. Not easy, okay? It's not easy. Let's see first a damp move. Let's see, for example, sacrificing the bishop so the king can simply take, and then we think we are going to do something, because, of course, we can take the pawn, otherwise the other we will promote to queen. So something like this, well, the king approaches, and we will be able to only draw, of course. So without these moves in the way, get ready for the most brilliant move of the first phase, which is bishop b1. Brilliant. Yes, it's brilliant, because now we can see easily. If the pawn takes to the queen, well, there's a check, the king moves, and I will grab the other pawn, and it's a win for white for sure. So what else can black do? Well, if it approaches the king, attacking now the rook, we simply take the pawn, it's check, the rook takes the bishop, and again, we are in the same situation. Maybe you think, okay, let's promote now for a queen on the other side. Well, this gives us the chance to sacrifice the bishop with check. And sorry, what happened over here? Of course, the king can take the bishop, and suddenly we are losing again, even if you lose the bishop. So very brilliant and only move to save the position. But now it's black to play. It's not over yet, and this is the fun part, because well, we have seen them all except one. Another surprise move from black, promoting to a knight. And basically, this is the theme of the study. And I like the phrase, it ain't over until the fat lady sings, coming from the opera of Wagner. Just for curiosity, well, Wagner wrote four epic operas that were in a sequence. And the last one, the one that finished the cycle, uh, there was a fat lady singing, and she took almost 20 minutes, and after she sing, the cycle of the epic operas that he wrote ended. And so the phrase, it ain't over until the fat lady sings. And now the knight does the fat lady singing, because here white needs to find also the right continuation. Because let's see, for example, what happens if white plays something like king g1. Well, suddenly the knight comes to attack the bishop, and if the bishop, let's say, take the pawn, well, we can approach the king attacking the rook, and now suddenly we see that the rook is dominated, because if it attacks the knight, well, we just approach the king, and as you can see, this square and this square are attacked by the knight. The king controls the other one. If we go to the corner, well, the king simply goes again attacking the rook, so the rook needs again to move away, and again we attack the rook. And if the rook goes to the only possible one, well, the knight will play f3 and fork the king and the rook, and as you know, just the bishop can't checkmate. So suddenly we are in a situation where the knight is able to dominate the rook. So here, of course, there is another one, like for example, going g2. But again, we check the king with the knight, the king moves, and now suddenly we can take and promote to the queen, because in the end, we are going to be able, because we are attacking the rook, we are going to be able to play rook versus knight endgame, which is in this situation that the knight is very close to the king and not cornered. It's a draw. So again, black has saved himself in the last possible scenario. No one was seeing this coming. So white needs to really find the only possible move, which is king h3. Brilliant, because now, well, black can't do many more miracles. Of course, if we approach, then we have this check. The the king takes the bishop, but now we are going to be able to trap the knight with rook e2, because if you notice, the knight isn't moving. So if the king tries to approach, we simply check it, and of course, in the end, we are going to grab the knight. And let's see here, for example, what if the knight goes to d2 instead of the king going to b2? Well, now we can take the pawn. Of course, the king will attack our rook, and the threat is simple. If we are able to grab the bishop without losing the knight, it's a draw if we are in the black side. So the maneuver is very simple. We attack the knight. So if the king now takes the bishop, we take the knight. So the king comes to protect the knight and again attack the rook, but now the rook can go to the other side, and now it's impossible for black to have it all, because either it keeps the knight but allows also white to play with rook and bishop against knight, which is a win for white, or if it attacks the bishop, well, we simply play rook h2 pinning the knight, and so black needs to decide, but either way it's a losing move, because if he takes the bishop I take the knight, and if it comes back again I simply, let's say we move the bishop one time and then we see how to win it. Okay, so in the end there was this surprise move of ain't over until the fat lady sing. In this situation it's a knight singing, and I hope you have enjoyed the study that Gurgenidze has brought to us, and see you again in future studies. Bye bye.